as I was saying, the households in the productive resource market supply the productive resources. In the old days, they were called factors of production, and sometimes we refer to them as inputs into the production process. Inputs, factor of production, production resources all have the same meaning. Unfortunately, it's common in economics to have the same meaning and several words that refer to the same meaning. It causes confusion at times. But anyways, the suppliers in this market are the households, as opposed to them being demanders in the product market up above. And the demanders in the productive resource market, for the inputs that go into the production process, the demanders are the firms. So you see the firm's role is reversed from supplier in the product markets to demander in the productive resource markets, and the households' roles are reversed from demander in the product markets to suppliers in the productive resource market. It's important to understand this because if you were taking a course in public finance and you had a good instructor who knew what he's talking about, he would tell you that all taxes are ultimately borne by households and households only. Even if the tax is mandated by legislation to be levied on the firm or anyone else, they go to the household. Why? They're either passed forward in the form of a higher price or backward in the form of a lower reward, less compensation. Remember, the firm is the place where, it is not the resource, it's the place where. So that all the taxes are borne by households either as buyers of goods and services or the supplier of resources. Note that well. There's no free lunch for households, the people of the society, the ultimate productive resources society. There is no free lunch. They bear it all. They pay for it all. Okay, one way or another, they pay for it all. That's critical to understand. Now, as I mentioned in that short little introduction to the course that most of you have seen, the all trade is based upon comparative advantage, including international trade, interpersonal trade, or trade between people within a country, intranational trade, intra as opposed to international. All trade. Okay, so that some goods and services that come to the households come through the import route. That is to say, they are produced in other countries, but purchased by households outside that country. So if in the US of A, we buy foreign goods or services, which, by the way, do not have to be consumed here. Services like recreation or vacations, tourism, are consumed in a foreign country. Even though they're consumed there, they're paid for by our households, so therefore they're imports. Our imports come from foreign countries, which are the foreign countries' exports. For every export, there's an import. Monetary value of exports, you get monetary imports. In the last week or so of this course, the last 4 chapters of your book, you see this becomes very complicated because payment usually occurs in a currency that's different from the buyer. The buyer has to buy the currency and exchange his currency for that. That's called the exchange rate. Well, we'll get to that later. We'll just let that complexity unwrap in the last week or two of this course. Now, notice that the firms, one of the demanders for their goods are foreigners demanding goods and services produced by our firms. Remember, the firm is the place where production occurs. Well, we have accounting systems to measure all this. The basic one for the circular flow is the national income and product accounts, because income is reward for the productive resources who supply the inputs, factors of production, or the productive resources